And welcome back to another episode of All Access with the Profs. My name is Leo West, and alongside me is my brilliant co-host, Gerasimos Gervasilio. We have a great show planned for you today, but before we continue, how are you doing today, Yuri?
Leo, I am doing perfect today. Yeah, perfect. I'm creating new literature, new words in the dictionary today.
New language.
Yeah, so new language, prof language. Anyways, but not only am I perfect today, but the temperature is starting to really heat up around here, Leo. But not just the temperature, but so are the Rowan Profs as the spring season is in full swing.
That's very true, Gerasimos. And coming up, we have Skylar Sweeney. She will highlight the start to the NJAC play for baseball. Then Luke Brown is going to showcase our Athlete of the Week. And then Jordan Weisinger brings us the latest on all things women's lacrosse.
Let us start with Rowan baseball. The 6th-ranked team in Division III had a weekend filled with conference matchups. With the latest results, as well as perspective from the coaches and players themselves, here is Skylar Sweeney reporting from the Rowan baseball field.
Rowan baseball had a busy weekend, going 3-1, including a win at home against York Monday night. At home, Rowan beat Stockton 9-4 in Game 1 and 12-8 in Game 2. On the road at Montclair State, Rowan won 7-6 in the opener, but dropped the nightcap 4-2 as Braden Davis reached 100 career hits and hit his 8th home run of the season. Then at home against York, Rowan had a late game push in the 7th, with Davis driving in 2 runs to take the lead.
I was just looking to do a job. There was one out, so I just wanted to run to score, whether it was a sac fly or just doing any type of job, because earlier in the game I wasn't producing as well, so glad I did in the spot I needed to.
Joey Bogart had a highlight stop at the 2nd to make the game-winning out. The bullpen would close it out in the later innings to seal the victory.
You got to play one day at a time. That's you take an 11-game winning streak, you got to get back on. After a loss, got to get right back at it. And tomorrow's another day, and that's what we came out and told them today.
The Profs move into NJAC competition later this week. Rowan improves to 17-3 on the season. I'm Skylar Sweeney reporting with All Access with the Profs, sending it over to you guys in the studio.
Great work, Skylar. Now shifting over to softball. The 23rd ranked Profs continue to roll heading into NJAC play with matchups against Montclair State, Stockton, and Kane. Now let's send things over to Jake Clark for the latest.
Thanks, guys. Rowan softball continued their NJAC schedule this past week with games on the road against Stockton and Kane. The Profs traveled to face off against the top 25th ranked Ospreys last Tuesday, and Stockton was able to sweep the doubleheader. Stockton took Game 1 by a final of 7-2 and Game 2 4-2. Rowan was able to bounce back later in the week as they took on the Kane Cougars in Union, New Jersey. The Profs swept the Cougars in the doubleheader as Rowan took Game 1 10-2 and Game 2 4-1. In Game 1 of the 2-game set against Kane, sophomore Ava Fisher had a great day at the plate. Fisher went 3 for 4 in the game and added 3 RBIs in the win. In Game 2, senior Emily McCutcheon pitched all 7 innings, striking out 7 batters along the way in the Profs' victory. Rowan softball is now 19-7 on the year and 4-2 in conference play. The Profs are currently on the road taking on the Lions of TCNJ. From SB Gym here at Rowan University, I'm Jake Clark, sending it back to the studio.
Here with our RTN All Access Athlete of the Week from softball, it's Michaela Dansky. Michaela, I want to start off with the transition that you have made this season to hitting. Last year, as a pinch runner, came in, provided a ton of value on the base paths, but now you've made the transition to providing a ton of value at the plate. So what has that been like this season?
It's been a lot of fun. I know last year I was able to learn my speed, what I needed to work on over the summer, and what I can do on the field, especially I don't need to do too much at the plate because I know my speed will get me the place I need to be.
What made you such a confident base runner last year? How did you prove yourself to this coaching staff that you were somebody that could come in and fill that pinch runner role so well?
Just taking advantage of opportunities, especially at practice, always putting in a complete effort and just taking advantage of situations.
You've only been caught stealing 3 times in your career, so where does the speed come from? Did you run track in high school? Where does that speed come from for you?
I don't know, honestly. I used to be really slow growing up, and then one day it just kind of flipped, and I was just fast. I don't know. I didn't really do anything.
This team has certainly played well lately with back-to-back wins up at Kane on Friday. How does this group feel? You've had to grind out some NJAC wins, but ultimately this is still a team very much in contention for an NJAC championship.
Yeah, we feel pretty good. We're all confident and we trust each other, and I have full confidence that we're going to go far this year.
Michaela Dansky, your RTN All Access Athlete of the Week. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Luke. Blink and you'll miss her. Michaela Dansky's speed and playmaking ability has certainly been impressive this softball season. Speaking of speed, it's time to talk men's and women's outdoor track and field. Aiden Ray has your update.
Thanks, guys. The Rowan men's and women's outdoor track and field teams both competed in multiple events this weekend. Both teams were at the Embry-Riddle Running Elements Classic in Daytona Beach, the Ursinus Spring Fest at Ursinus College, and the Sam Howell Invitational at Princeton University. Starting off with the men's team, they secured 2 school records over the weekend. At Princeton, Seth Clevenger broke the school record in winning the 10K meters and set a new #1 Division III time in the process. The result breaks the previous best set in 1980 by Jack Cruz. At Embry-Riddle, Demetrius Hester set another record again with a top throw of 73.29 meters for a new 4th best all-time Division III mark. A great job by the men's team. Moving over to the women's team, they hit some personal marks. Nyla Jones ran a new #1 NJAC time in the 100-meter hurdles and registered a PR in 200-meter preliminaries for a #2 NJAC result. Elijah Wilson hit a PR in the distance that gives her a #2 NJAC mark. A great job by the women's team. Up next, both track and field teams will be back at home for the Oscar Moore Invitational next Saturday. The event will start at 11 a.m. This is Aiden Ray, your Rowan track and field reporter here on All Access with the Profs, and we'll send it right back to the studio.
Great work, Aiden. Now let's move over to lacrosse. Their schedule has been packed with ranked opponents. This week was no different for the Profs. Jordan Weisinger has more from the soccer and lacrosse complex.
Thanks, guys. The now 14th ranked Rowan Profs took on the number 22 ranked Christopher Newport Captains in what was an absolute thriller here in Glassboro on Saturday. The game was tied at 10 entering the 4th quarter. Fiona Lockhart would start off the final quarter with 2 goals in 3 minutes to give Rowan a 12-10 lead. Elena Sorkin of the Captains would then score her 6th goal of the game before Alexis Lowry and Elena Corson would put the game away with back-to-back goals to win 14-12. Corson finished the game with 6 goals scored. She now leads the NJAC in goals per game with 4.55 and shots per game with 9.73. She also is the first player in the NJAC this season to reach 50 goals scored, which is 18 more than the next closest player. Rowan is now 9-2 on the season, and they begin NJAC play tomorrow against Stockton. I'm Jordan Weisinger from the Rowan Soccer and Lacrosse Complex. Now let's send it to Mason Kinahan for this week's edition of Tape Talk.
Thanks, Jordan. Welcome back to Tape Talk here on All Access with the Profs. I'm your host, Mason Kinahan. The Rowan women's lacrosse team moved into the top 10 in the NPI rankings after picking up another ranked win, this time over Christopher Newport last Saturday. The game lived up to the hype as it was a closely contested first half. So how were the Profs able to break away in the second half to pick up the victory? Well, let's dive into the tape and find out. Rowan and Christopher Newport had a very back and forth first half, with neither team having a lead that was more than 2 at any point in the game up to this one. But Rowan found themselves down 2 here late in the 3rd quarter and need to swing momentum back on their side. And they're going to be able to do that through some great decisive decision-making and aggressive play from their team leaders. Rothwine is going to send this into Lockhart, and when Lockhart initially catches this, she's got a lot of space and a pretty good angle at potentially putting a shot on goal here. But Christopher Newport does a good job of closing in on potential angles of, maybe a cut and a pass or just a shot on goal in general from Lockhart. So you'll see 3 different Christopher Newport defenders, 1 here, a 2nd here, and a 3rd here, all close in on Lockhart, and things are going to get aggressive pretty quickly. You'll see Lockhart gets a lot of contact from multiple Captain's defenders, and ultimately she has to run out of it in order to maintain possession and not turn this thing over. And you'll see here she has to concentrate because she's going to lose possession for a second, but ultimately able to recover. And as soon as she does, she gets her eyes up, her head up, looking for potential open players here for Rowan, because she knows she has a lot of just activity around her currently, so she knows someone's going to be open. And you'll see here, as soon as she regains control, she has her eyes up, her head up, and she sees Trish Gillen wide open with her stick up and ready to catch this pass. So she sends it into Gillen, and Gillen's able to draw some contact in a legal check on Christopher Newport, which sets up a free position shot for the Profs. Rowan knows they have the advantage here on this free position attempt because Hadley Chadwick, who's in net for Christopher Newport, has struggled up to this point. So all Trish Gillen is going to do here is off the whistle, fire it right past Chadwick, and all of a sudden the lead is cut in half for Christopher Newport. Christopher Newport continued to beat themselves up here in this middle portion of the second half. This time a green card on Brooklyn Morrison puts the Profs a man up, and all it takes is a little give and go action to Elena Corson. And when Corson catches this, I mean, talk about a lane here on the net. It's too easy for Corson. You can't give her this much space. All she has to do is fire this towards the net, and Hadley Chadwick had no chance. Shortly after the start of the fourth quarter, Christopher Newport had another foul, which led to another free position attempt for the Rowan Profs, and Fiona Lockhart right here is going to take advantage. She's going to act off the whistle here like she's going up the middle, because that is pretty much what Rowan has done on every free position attempt so far in this game. But instead of going up the middle, she's going to slow her momentum down, cut to the right side real quick, and go low, bottom left on a Hadley Chadwick, right past Chadwick's right leg, and put the Profs up for the first time in this game. Skipping ahead to the closing minutes of the fourth quarter, the Profs are on a 5-1 run dating back to the third and are looking for the knockout punch here on Christopher Newport. And who else but the senior Elena Corson is going to deliver for Rowan. You'll see Sophia Lijo kind of sets the screen on Corson's defender. CNU is in man-to-man coverage, which helps open up this play for Corson. And Madison Rothwine is watching this very intently, seeing what's going to happen here, because as soon as Corson gets free, you know Corson's going to send this one onto the net, and that's pretty much exactly what's going to happen. Rothwine's going to give this to Corson, a lot of space, an easy look at the net with only a couple defenders in the way, not a lot of activity. Corson fires this for her 6th goal of the game and helps Rowan pick up another top 25 win. That'll do it for this week's segment of Tape Talk here on All Access with the Profs, but stay tuned because more coverage of Rowan Athletics is coming your way.
Thanks, Mason. I mean, talk about lacrosse, man. I mean, they have been on one heck of a run this season, too. I mean, ranked win after ranked win after ranked win. It's been really impressive.
Yeah, and there's a reason why they're rising up in the ranks right now in the national standings. They're top 25. They're beating other top 25 opponents. So I don't think it's going to be long until they're like top 10, top 5, maybe number 1. I mean, it could be up number 1. You never know, Leo.
I mean, they're certainly playing like a number 1 team right now, too. I mean, you know, their issue was they couldn't beat ranked teams. Now they can beat ranked teams. I mean, sky is the limit for these Profs.
Absolutely, and just look at how they did it. Great analysis by our very own Mason Kinahan to really depict how great this women's lacrosse team has been. But before we go to break now, here's what we have in store for the rest of today's show. Owen Caldwell will give you all the upcoming Prof action in the calendar segment. Jacob Michaud takes you on stage for his Magic Minute. And of course, weekly sports news with Jake Kitchen. Don't lose access just yet. We'll be back after these messages.
Everyone has a ritual, that small thing that keeps us focused.
A habit we never skip to clear our minds and elevate our performance.
But what do you do to keep your head in the game, to drown out that self-doubt and support your mental health? Because being your best isn't just about taking care of your body.
It's about taking care of your mind and your mental health.
Discover the resources that you need to keep your mind focused and your mental health a priority.
Hate is loud. It gets clicks. It gets attention. Hate, however, is actually quite small. But love is the majority. Love fills our hearts, our lives, our every day.
Hello, everyone. This is Owen Caldwell, your host of the calendar segment here on All Access with the Profs. We are now officially into the month of April, and this week we have a little bit of a lighter week to discuss, with the exception of a very busy Saturday. So without any further hesitation, let's get into the events this week in Rowan Athletics. Starting it off this Wednesday, after a big home win against Christopher Newport this past Saturday, women's lacrosse, currently ranked number 16 in the nation in the latest IWLCA poll, will wrap up their 3-game homestand as the Profs host Stockton at 4 p.m. Then we move on to Thursday. On this day, baseball, ranked number 6 in the nation, according to D3Baseball.com, will begin a home-and-home series with the Rutgers-Camden Scarlet Raptors. The first battle between these teams will be in Camden, with game time scheduled for 3:30 p.m. on Thursday. Then, on Friday, the two teams will meet once again, this time in Glassboro. This game is also set to start at 3:30 p.m. Now, get buckled in, everyone, because we have a ton of events set to take place on Saturday. To begin, at 11 a.m., men's and women's outdoor track and field, as it says right here, and also the men's team, they're currently ranked first in the nation in the latest USTF CCCA Division III Track and Field Rating Index. But in any event, men's and women's indoor track and field will participate in the Oscar Moore Invitational, and that is set to be held right here in Glassboro. And just 30 minutes later, baseball will take the field in the borough once again as the Profs go toe-to-toe with Rutgers Newark. The second game of this doubleheader against the Scarlet Raiders will then get underway at approximately 2:30 p.m. 3 more events to discuss here for Saturday. How about another doubleheader? Softball, currently ranked number 23 in the nation, according to the NFCA, will head to Jersey City to battle NJCU. These games are set to begin at 1 and 3 p.m. Finally, women's lacrosse will also be heading up north as the Profs will travel to Mahwah, New Jersey to face the Ramapo Roadrunners. 1 p.m. is the start time from North Jersey. With nothing scheduled for Sunday or Monday, we then move to Tuesday, where we will wrap up the week discussing softball's doubleheader at Rutgers Camden. These games are currently set to begin at 3 and 5 p.m. So that concludes our day-by-day coverage of Rowan athletic events for this upcoming week. However, we aren't entirely done with the calendar segment just yet. For my event of the week this week, I am previewing men's and women's outdoor track and field at the Oscar Moore Invitational. This past weekend was a successful one for outdoor track and field, as there were members of both teams participating in the Embry-Riddle Running Elements Classic in Daytona Beach, Florida. According to Rowan Athletics, the men's team placed 6th out of 51 teams, while the women's team tied for 20th out of 50 teams. It will be very interesting to see how both teams fare here at home this Saturday. That wraps up another calendar segment here on All Access with the Profs. Now, for more about the upcoming Oscar Moore Invitational, let's hear from Sam Prince and Greg Mazzo on Primetime Preview.
Thank you, Owen, and welcome back to Primetime Preview. Well, once again, I'm Sam Prince, and alongside me is Greg Mazzo, and Rowan University is hosting the Oscar Moore Invitational this Saturday. Both the men's and women's outdoor track field team will be participating in it. And, well, looking back at the Sam Howell Invitational last weekend, Seth Clevenger broke another school record this time and winning the 10,000 meters in a time of 29 minutes and 0.9 seconds, and which also set a D3 record. So, Greg, who else should Profs fans looking out for this weekend?
Well, there's a couple players that I want to point out. It's Evan Corcoran and Rajon Dixon, because Corcoran had a PR of 21.37 seconds in the 200 meters, and Rajon Dixon also ran 21.2 seconds for a new #1 NJAC result. So you want to talk about players that have had recent success as of late. I think both of them are really going to need to show up this upcoming Saturday.
Well, I agree with all those athletes that you mentioned, but I think you forgot about one more men's athlete on the track team, Elijah Hendricks, who in the 200 meter he ran last weekend in the Embry-Riddle with 21.8 seconds. And also, let's talk about the women's team. I mean, there's just so many athletes on both the men's and women's. You got to talk about Nyla Jones real quickly. Nyla Jones, who last weekend finished first in the NJAC with a 100 meter and 14.38 seconds, and she also registered a brand new PR. And Mazzo, any other women athletes that we want to talk about on the women's track team?
Well, I gave you 2 for the men's. I'm also going to give you 2 for the women's team.
Oh, you're giving me double. Okay.
Yes, I'm going to give you 2, just like I did with the men's. Lisa O'Sullivan, in the 800 meters, ran 2 minutes and 17.16 seconds, which was a personal record and an NJAC best. And then also Alasia Wilson, she was also somebody that was really good for them last weekend as well. She had a PR in distance at 37.68 meters, which was an NJAC #2 mark. So both of those players were really impressive, and not just, outdoors, but really indoors as well when you go back to when they were playing earlier this season.
I mean, you talked about it earlier this season, the men's team won a national championship just a couple weeks ago in Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, this is a golden age of track and field here at Rowan University.
Yes, there is. And speaking of national championships, Sam, how about your Michigan Wolverines last night?
I mean, that was a pretty fun night last night, I have to say, winning Michigan singing national championship. It was pretty fun. But you know what? There's an everything conference here at Rowan. You know what's an everything conference, Mazzo?
Yeah, it is.
You know what it is? It's the NJAC. And, well, the NJAC is an everything conference. Well, for more news and updates for the everything conference, the NJAC here is Keegan Thompson.
Thank you, Sam. Tonight, let's look at some of the big stories around the NJAC as conference play is starting up for most of our spring sports. And as Owen mentioned in his weekly calendar, Rowan women's lacrosse is up against Stockton tomorrow afternoon. And as much as we hate to double dip here on All Access, some of these matchups must be discussed in detail, especially considering how congested they are at the top. So the Profs jumped to 9th place in the nation on the most recent NCAA Division III poll. Stockton are still outside the top 25, but the Profs are 9-2 and the Ospreys are 9-3. So whoever comes away with the win will be second in the NJAC behind first place TCNJ, who, by the way, is ranked 12th in the nation. Big game in the world of women's lacrosse tomorrow, right here in Glassboro. And now for softball. Stockton, Ramapo, TCNJ are starting to pull ahead in the standings. Stockton in particular beat last year's champs, the Rowan Profs, in both games of a doubleheader and are now ranked nationally at 21-3 on the year. But they did just drop their first game in conference play today. So it's worth mentioning that all these three teams are undefeated in conference play, or were prior to today, but that has changed. So none of them have faced each other yet until this weekend, that is, where Ramapo will have a fateful home encounter with TCNJ on Saturday afternoon. With the Roadrunners at 23-3 overall and 7-0 in the conference, and the Lions at 17-9 following their doubleheader loss to the Rowan Profs. They're at 6-2 in the NJAC. A sweep for either team would really shake up the top spots in the conference. Ramapo, by the way, undefeated at home so far. And things don't get easier for the Lions from here because they played the Profs, who won last year. They're playing Ramapo, who's currently at first place. And they have a doubleheader next Tuesday against Stockton, who's ranked in the nation. Massive implications for the top three positions in the NJAC following these matchups. And now things are a little bit more simple in the world of baseball, where in a shocking turn of events, Rutgers-Camden is tops in the NJAC at 6-0 in conference play. They're just above 500 at 14-10 on the year. Camden is ahead of Rowan at 17-3 by virtue of the Profs' split doubleheader against Montclair State this past weekend, putting them at 5-1 in the NJAC. But coming up Thursday, the Profs will have a chance to snatch the top position back when they play the Scarlet Raptors in Camden and then back at home on Friday. So it'll be a home and home for both of these teams. And then coming up on the weekend as well, it's Montclair and Kane in the mix, 3rd and 4th respectively in the conference right now. So the Camden and Rowan matchups will have massive implications for the destinies of the Cougars and the Redhawks, who will also be facing off on Thursday and Friday in a home and home, 1 away and 1 home for each team. And a sweep for either of these two will guarantee second place in the NJAC, with Kane able to move as high as first place, depending on how the Profs do. 2 massive battles at the top of the baseball standings in the NJAC. And that's all for Around the NJAC this week. Some marquee matchups in each of our spring sports this week. And I'll be right back here on All Access with the Profs to break them down next week. I'm Keegan Thompson, and we're heading back to the main desk with Gerasimos and Leo.
Thanks, Keegan. And, you know, that matchup between Rowan Baseball and Rutgers-Camden coming up, I have that circled on my calendar, which I'm sure Owen Caldwell's pretty happy about.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, that is an incredible game right there. So you got 6-0, Rutgers-Camden, and then the Rowan Profs, who made it the farthest out of any NJAC team last year. Not to mention Rutgers-Camden were the NJAC postseason champions last year, too. They came out of nowhere and won it. But this year, they're looking like a pretty strong squad.
Yeah, they really are. And you know, it's funny because you'd think it'd be between Kane and Rowan, like last year, both College World Series participants. But here comes Rutgers-Camden, and if Rowan can put together 2 really strong performances by the end of this week, they could take to that top spot in the NJAC.
Yeah, I mean, Montclair State as well. You got to throw their name in there as well. I mean, the top 4 is just absolutely loaded. I mean, competition is certainly heating up in the NJAC, but now it's time for some more magic. It's time for Misho's Magic Minute. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Leo. Welcome back to my Magic Minute. I don't know if I got shorter or if this thing got taller, but anyways, here we go. This weekend, Rowan men's outdoor track and field brought the magic, as they always do, proving why they are #1 in the nation. First, let's talk about Rowan sweeping the NJAC weekly honors this week with Seth Clevenger, Demetrius Hester, and Chris Ross. Again, huge congrats to Clevenger for setting a D3 record, and Hester with the #1 throw in D3 this season, as Aiden mentioned earlier. Let's talk about the Ursinus meet, though, where even more magic happened last weekend. Rookie of the Week Chris Ross posted a long jump of 7.34 meters, which is #3 in D3. And then how about these profs just perching across the podium? In the 400-meter hurdles, Rowan went 1-2-3 in the form of Angel Gonzalez, Jordan Lawton, and Ashraf MacLake. And that wasn't all, as the profs followed suit in the 1500-meter, going 1-2-3 again, with Colin Patterson leading the way, followed by Aiden Brad and Cal Heyman. I truly can't wait to see what else this squad will accomplish throughout the rest of this season. That'll be all for me this week. Let's send things over to Jake Kitchen, who will take you through the weekly sports news. Take it away, Jake.
Bang! Thank you, Jacob, and welcome back, everyone, to Weekly Sports News. This past weekend, we had the men's and women's basketball Final Four matchups, which then led to the championship games, leaving us with 2 new national champions. Let's go back to Friday, where we had all 4 of the 1 seeds from the women's tournament battling out in the Final Four. UCLA and Texas started off the night with UCLA coming out on top, winning 51-44. Despite losing the turnover battle 22-11, UCLA was the first team to punch their ticket to the championship game. The second game of the night was another classic, as South Carolina and UConn, both teams led by future Hall of Fame coaches, ended up with South Carolina getting the edge over UConn 62-48. This is UConn's only loss of the season, and Tanilas Latson had a big part in handing it to them after she finished the game with a 16-point, 11-rebound double-double. The stage was set for the women's championship on Sunday as the UCLA Bruins faced off against the South Carolina Gamecocks. The Gamecocks were favored to win their 3rd championship in just 5 years, but the Bruins had other ideas. UCLA had an arms-length lead at halftime, but then in the 3rd quarter, chaos broke out as the Bruins ended up outscoring the Gamecocks by 16 points in the quarter. That lead was secured the whole way through for the Bruins as they won this one 79-51, giving them their first national championship in program history. The player of the game was definitely UCLA's Gabriela Jaquez, who is the younger sister of the Miami Heat's Jaime Jaquez Jr., as she dropped a 21-point double-double to give her team the national title. Switching over to the men's tournament, the Final Four games were played on Saturday, with UConn versus Illinois starting off the night. This game had a freshman versus freshman battle, as UConn's Braylon Mullins and Illinois' Keaton Wagler were the first pair of freshmen to score 15-plus points in a Final Four game since Michael Jordan and Patrick Ewing did it in 1982. Ladies and gentlemen, if my math is correct, that was 44 years ago. I wasn't even a thought back then. Anyways, the 20-point performance for Wagler wasn't enough, as UConn came out on top in this one 71-62, giving UConn their 3rd championship appearance in just 4 years. Now for the final game of the night, Arizona versus Michigan. This one was hyped up to be the game to remember, but ended up being a blowout for Michigan as they dogged Arizona with a final score of 91-73. We were in for a treat on Monday night as the UConn Huskies faced off against the Michigan Wolverines in the national championship. This game was a speed versus size matchup, with UConn being the speed and Michigan being the size. This game was close all the way through until the final buzzer, but with help from 7'3" center Ade Mara and junior guard Elliot Cadeau, the Wolverines slashed the Huskies and claimed their 2nd ever national championship and their 1st since 1989. Boy, was it a march to remember, and for everyone here at All Access, congratulations to our graphics operator, Lydia Fitzgerald, for winning the All Access Tournament Challenge. I won't even talk about how bad my bracket was, so let's just throw it over to Gerasimus and Leo to close out the show, and I will see you all next week to highlight the Masters weekend, as well as the final standings for the NBA and the NHL.
Great stuff, Jake. I mean, It was certainly a March Madness of all time, too. I mean, we had buzzer beaters galore. We had a new champion for the first time since, 1989, I think was the last time Michigan won, too. I don't want to get started on my bracket. I had Duke, and we all know about that Braden Mullen shot. We talked about it last week, but enough about that, too. What did you make of March Madness?
You know, I really enjoyed March Madness. You know, I'm glad it's over because now I don't have to look at my hideous bracket anymore. But I really enjoyed it. You know, shout out to Michigan. Shout out to our very own Sam Prince. I know he's very pleased about that whole performance. But I really did think UConn was going to win. I actually went as far as saying it was a guarantee that UConn was going to win.
Wow.
Because I think Dan Hurley is one of the best coaches in college basketball. And I thought they were going to have it. I really did.
Shout out Jersey City. I mean, that's where he's from.
Yeah.
So shout out Jersey City. Shout out CT as well on audio, too. He's from Connecticut, so he almost had a third championship in 4 years for him to celebrate as well, too. But with the end of March Madness, it gives us a chance to focus on the other spring sports we got going on. So, Gerasmos, what we got going on with the Union?
Oh, no, not that one. Why? Why do you keep bringing this up?
I'm asking you a question.
I told you before the show, we're not supposed to bring this up.
I'm just asking, man. It's just I don't know how they're doing. You're the guy. I mean, he's the guy.
Well, here we go again. They lost again. They lost again this weekend. They lost to Charlotte. 6 straight losses. And you know what? They have 0 points. And you know, since you brought that up, I'm not showing up next week. I'm not showing up next week. Nope, I'm skipping a show. I will not be here next week. The Union are making me so upset that I'm going to boycott All Access next week.
Speaking of Philadelphia sports teams, the Phillies are doing pretty well as well, too. They took 2 out of 3 against the Colorado Rockies, and they just had a very nice comeback victory against the San Francisco Giants last night, too. I mean, Bryce Harper's finally coming to life.
Yeah, the only thing that's keeping me up right now is Justin Crawford. That guy is awesome. He's had such a great start to the season. But, you know, I can't even talk about the Phillies anymore because you just had to bring up the Union. You just had to do it, and now my mood's all messed up.
Well, I think that's about all the time we got for the show. What about you, Gerasmos?
Yeah, I think we close it out, Leo.
Okay.
I think we close it out. But thank you very much for tuning in for the actual great sports teams, unlike the Union, and our Rowan Profs. Thank you very much for tuning in to this week's episode of All Access with the Profs. For our entire hardworking crew and my co-host Leo West, I'm Gerasmos Kiravasiliou. And as always, go Profs!